10 is a beautiful number. 10 is a beautiful number. So is the number six. Good afternoon, and welcome to the garden. Today is June the 1st. It's the start of 60 plus 1, her story, her lesson, and of course, her message. So, of course, for the next 10 days and beyond, I will be coming to you with stories, lessons, and messages for the various decades of my life. And of course, come June the 10th, I will have an additional one to mark off 60 plus 1. So, of course, from a very, very early age, I loved dolls and books. My dolls were my go to things that kept me feeling empathetic with a sense of caring. I took time out to bathe my dolls, dress my dolls, comb their hair, and generally spend time with them as a means of getting away from everything around me. In addition to that, I thrived on books. So when it was time for us to have those gifts after having done well academically, I completely and thoroughly enjoyed those little books. When we got books from the library, when we were at school, I just lost myself in my books. So, of course, one of the lessons that I would have learned from many of those books is that I was able to be transported all over the world in different places, have fun, enjoy the jungle, enjoy snow, enjoy so many opportunities and experiences that I would have otherwise not been able to have in real life. So, really, my books were a safe space, especially when around us in the home setting, things weren't as they ought to. Mhm. Or sometimes when the other children at school were doing other things, I can remember I was in my books. My books taught me to improve on my written and verbal expressions. It also assisted my comprehension and analytical skills. And of course, it enabled me to be a better writer. So I totally and thoroughly enjoyed my book. So, got a message for you parents out there that it is important for you to instill in your child or children the importance of books. I know today we are living in a technical age and AI is very prevalent. Technology has advanced where persons no longer see the need for paper. But I want to put it to you that paper has its place, books has its place. There are so many skills that can be acquired when one gets into books, particularly as children. You know, there is the eye movement from left to right on the page, the idea of children sitting and reading to concentrate, having some skills in that area, also helping them to be better writers and express themselves in a much better manner. So I want to encourage parents out there to instill in your children the love for books. So of course, as I continued in my latter times in life, I know that I was an extremely shy and very timid individual, especially between the ages of 11 on toward the age of 20. I kept silent most of the time, sometimes to my detriment. I was afraid of speaking up and letting others know how they would have affected me. I did not want to displease anyone, so I kept silent. I said nothing. I didn't want to be hurt or hurt anyone, so I pretty much kept to myself. That in itself was not always a good thing because what it did was that others, on several instances, took a little advantage. People are going to take advantage of you when they realize that your kindness and your calmness and you being quiet is something that gives them the upper hand. So I just want to encourage parents, while it is true that persons should be aggressive to ensure that your child or children are able to assert themselves. Let them assert themselves, have boundaries. As adults as well, we need to have our boundaries. Let people know what we do not appreciate in a very respectful manner. It's very important that we do so. And so, even as I continued on my way as a young adult, from the ages of 21 to 30, I became a mom. I became a mom at the age of 23. I gave birth to my daughter when I was 23 years old. I was pretty excited. It was an exciting time for me, and I jumped into my motherhood role with a lot of verve, a lot of excitement, a lot of purpose to do what I needed to do. Fortunately, my motherhood or my becoming pregnant had a little backlash. So, of course, there always are cake rules that exist as far as a young single mother is concerned. So, obviously, on the religious front, on the church front, that was a big no no as a single unmarried woman. And of course, much to my um, shock within the educational sector at the time as well, I found that I wasn't able to continue being an educator, at least for 6 whole months. And what was more disturbing was that I was not paid at all. Nothing. There was no source of income whatsoever. There were no benefits from Social Security at all during that time. And I found that to be a little harsh because it's like you are expected to be away from your work as if left out in the cold with nothing, no support. Thankfully, these days, this doesn't exist anymore. And so the lesson I have learned is that in spite of all those disappointments and all those setbacks, you are still able to do well. I was able to do my best as a mother. I got the support from family. And of course, I was not in a bad way economically and financially. So that was something that was a good thing. What I learned is that those archaic rules do not always serve the person to whom they are directed. It mostly serves the egos and the staunch and stoic type of outlook on the persons who made those rules. I just want to give a message that even when you're faced with hard situations, you will always be able to find a way. If you believe in yourself and you know that you can get through, you should persist in a good way. You should persist as much as you can. Life has a way of teaching us a lot of lessons. And as I continued throughout my life, between the ages of 31 to 40, I realized that there was something in me that began to be stirred and allowed me to open up some more as it related to speaking up myself, demanding what I wanted, asserting myself, making my boundaries be known, and all in all, standing up for myself when previously I didn't do that. I expanded myself a whole lot. I gave ultimatums when it became necessary so as to improve my life. At this time, too, my emotional well being and my peace of mind began to take a lot of precedence. So, all the tumultuous years that had gone on before, I no longer wanted to be in that zone. I felt it was time. Maybe I was a late bloomer. I felt it was time for me to make something out of myself. At that time, too, I was a single mother of 2 children. And so, of course, it was very important for me to make good decisions as far as my children were concerned. I continued to be a good mother. I continued to do my best, but I began to state what I needed to see in my life. I didn't want to just settle for what was not the good or the best things for myself or even my children. I made some strong points as to what I needed to see. And so the message I need to leave with you young adults, with you, particularly women, is that sometimes in life you have a slow start. You have a tumultuous start. Things are going all over the place. The support is lacking. There are fiery arrows coming at you. But all in all, you were born with something deep within your belly. There's something, as I've always said, that something is growing inside of you. You were meant to succeed and thrive and grow. And so when you are faced with difficult times, as much as they are difficult times, you will be able to overcome those harsh moments. But you've got to put your mind to it. You've got to shift. There's got to be a shift, a mindset shift in order for you to proceed with what you want to proceed. And so this took some time, but I was pleased with myself that I was able to do so. So then I continued along. And by the time I would have reached 40, I seriously had my fervent stamp on what I needed to see in my life. I made my decisions. I gave my word that I was going to be a much better individual for myself. And of course, for my children at this time now, I was now a mother of three, and I realized that life had begun to be even on an even keel. Situations had changed in many regards. Some of the ultimatums that I had given were actually acknowledged, and I had begun to see a beautiful light as far as things were concerned. I learned that when you push and press for what you want, people will have to come around and understand that you're in business. So those were some of the lessons that I learned. I also learned that my God is a good God. Because all in all, in spite of all that was going on, and all of the times that I hadn't always been in a good place for him, he continued to be with me, being on my knees in prayer many times as I poured out my soul and heart to him. And I know he saw the heart that I had, because mankind sees on the outside, but God sees on the inside. And so God knows what we truly are about. And he's a good father who always takes care of his own. So I just want to encourage anyone out there to believe in God and keep trusting in him. Have a mindset shift. Renew your mind. Have your boundaries. State your case and move on. My years have gone on and I have seen so many strides. So as I would have continued and moved along, I am now in my own zone and space. I am clearly at peace. This time of my life is the most peaceful part of my life. I later started my exercise routine as far as the gym was concerned, because prior to that, I'd always been very keen physical activity. So I was exercise, being mindful of my eating habits and my nutrition, taking care of myself as far as I was concerned. This time, I took it a bit further and started engaging in strength training. I know what I want. So at this time in my life, at the age of 60, looking down the barrel of almost 61 within the next 9 days. I am very pleased. Sometimes we take a slow start, as I said prior, but it will come around. Don't give up. Don't give up. There's going to be a time when things will come around, but you've got to push. You can't just sit back and it will happen. You've got to push and you've got to press. This is it for today. Stay in the garden. Join me tomorrow as I give you some more stories, lessons, and messages in the garden. 10 is a beautiful number. 60 plus 1, a story, a lesson, and her message.